I just landed from San Francisco a few hours ago, so forgive me if I'm a bit jet lagged, but it's great to see all of you. Ramji, namaste, nice to see you. Audience, great to see you as well. Friends, I bring warm greetings from the United States Chamber of Commerce and from the United States India Business Council. We have hundreds of members who are dedicated to the happiness, prosperity, and well-being of the people of the United States and India, all 1.7 billion of them. And I believe, personally, that if the United States and India can increase our trade relations and increase our happiness, it'll be good for us, and it will be good for the entire world. It is also a particular pleasure for me to speak to you here in Bengaluru, where my American grandfather was born in 1907 and lived at a little bungalow at 2 Palace Road in the early years of his life. So I have a very strong emotional connection to Bengaluru, and I couldn't be happier than to talk to you today. On the ride in from the airport, and I should say for context, I've been coming to Bangalore for decades, and I remember it clearly from the 1970s. I was riding in from the airport. The airport, by the way, is magnificent, but the road was also magnificent. And I did a tweet last night talking about how much India is changing and how much India is on the move. And I talk with personal experience to American audiences about how much we don't appreciate the dynamism of India. I've been all over the world, and I always tell people America is an incredibly dynamic society. It is constantly reinventing itself. It is constantly examining itself to figure out how to form a more perfect union. Friends, I can tell you that is also true about India. Nothing about the India of today bears resemblance to the India that I remember as a child in the 1970s. If you look at all of the waves of absolute transformation that are taking place in information, in communications, in highways and airports, railways, something even as humble and yet crucially important as toilets or drinking water. If you look at fintech, if you look at the digital economy, you look at GST creating a national market, the Aadhaar card, food subsidies that have helped people through the pandemic, vaccines that have kept people healthy, and so much else besides. There is a sweeping revolution happening in India, and it is going to have an enormous positive impact on India, on America, and on the entire world. After centuries of disruption, India is returning, as Minister Hardeep said earlier, to its historic stature as one of the largest and most dynamic and prosperous economies on earth. Friends, I'm here to tell you, the politics of prosperity seem resurgent at this moment in time. I saw this firsthand during my tenure as the U.S. Chargé d'Affaires in New Delhi last year, and I'm seeing it even more now as the President of the United States India Business Council. The recent dynamism of India is truly amazing to behold, and this conference is further evidence of that. Friends, I achieved what I wanted to in my diplomatic career. I feel very good about the transformation of U.S.-India relations. When I joined the career, and when I first started working on India, that was a relationship that I would argue to you was defined by obstacles. And now, my dear friends, that is a relationship between the United States and India that is defined by opportunity. We achieved so much between the U.S. and India working as partners in the past 20 years. I think back on the nuclear deal, on the Counterterrorism Joint Working Group, the trilat with Japan and India and the United States, the Quad, the Homeland Security Dialogue, our East Asia Dialogue, our development cooperation, our vaccine partnership, our space cooperation. The list goes on and on and on and on. Now that we have built that kind of robust partnership between the United States and India, and we have built the steel frame, the resilient steel frame of our relationship, the key now is to look at how we can achieve our full potential as the world's 2 greatest democracies. And this is where I think it is important to turn to the economic, commercial, and investment frame. My publicly stated vision, and it echoes President Biden's that he said earlier, is of $500 billion in trade in goods and services between the United States and India annually. Right now we're at about 150, so there is room for improvement and room for growth. What's amazing about the trade, however, is that it has grown mightily in the past few years, and it has every prospect of growing mightily in the future. Digital economic trade alone between the United States and India is over $100 billion, and it's climbing very, very fast. Friends, that digital trade, the digital economy trade, is the goose that lays the golden eggs between both of our countries. US and Indian digital economy companies dominate the top 10 list in that most dynamic field of economic endeavor. And my appeal to you would be that we make sure that we create the structures and the regulations and the legal framework to ensure the continued vitality and continued growth of the digital economy in the United States and India. I was in Palo Alto, what feels like yesterday for me, but was probably 3 days ago, at a fantastic event, another think tank event. And what's amazing about Palo Alto when you walk around is how many Indians you see. You see them everywhere, Indians and Indian Americans. And all through that entire geography south of San Francisco, from San Francisco down to San Jose, you can get Indian music on the radio, you can get Indian food everywhere. You will find the children of India, who are now many of them Americans, building that digital economy of the future and having already built the digital economy that has resulted in the sweeping transformation of our lives. So let's keep that goose laying the golden eggs. It's very, very important. In fact, you might argue that there's ample sense in having a digital services agreement between the United States, India, and other advanced high-trust economies that share our values. Friends, I don't need to tell you that India has unbelievable ability and potential. There was a certain era where my dad emigrated from India because that potential went untapped. But I firmly believe, I passionately believe, that India can fulfill its vision of a 10 or 15, or as Mr. Subramaniam said, maybe even $30 trillion economy by simply dismantling hurdles, by empowering the vast human talent of this great country, of empowering individuals, businesses, and society, removing roadblocks, and promulgating clear, predictable, best-in-world policies, laws, and regulations. On this, I'll make a personal comment. I was just in Singapore on the way here, and I met with American and Indian companies who are members of the US-India Business Council, and they told me how Singapore is so enabling, how their policy environment, their regulatory environment is always designed toward being as competitive as possible. And as a result, the world has beat a path to the door of Singapore. There are hundreds of American companies there. There's more investment by the United States in Singapore than in the rest of ASEAN combined. So there's a lesson in that regulatory environment, the old saying being, if you build it, they will come. And I hope that in India, you will build that framework so that you can capture the full advantage of India's rise at this current moment. My feeling, friends, is that red tape should yield to red carpet. Policies like Make in India and the production-linked incentives indicate a profound shift in official thinking, a positive shift. And although our member companies still view India as very complex, extremely complex, and challenging as an investment destination at some times, they realize the sheer potential of India, and they appreciate sincerely the values of India, they appreciate the human talent of India, and they, I think, look to India as a trusted partner and friend in so many different ways. I would like to lay out, therefore, a challenge. It's been very admirable to see India's rise through the list of countries in the Ease of Doing Business Index, and that requires hard work, lots of hard work. But my challenge would be, can we see India rise to be in the top 10 of countries in the Ease of Doing Business Index? If India were in that top 10, the trillions and trillions of dollars that are looking for safe investment destinations would flock to India and would help advance that vision of a 10 or $20 trillion economy that much faster. It's been loud and clear in all of my meetings on Wall Street, in Silicon Valley, in Washington, in Singapore, in Delhi, and in Bangalore, and hopefully in a couple days in Mumbai, that corporates are very optimistic about India's growth trajectory, that they have investable dollars available, and what they're looking for is a sound policy environment. So that is the potential that can be tapped. That is the potential that really will help fuel India's transformation. We're entering a new era of innovation. In fact, we're already in it, during which India is projected to be among the youngest, largest, and fastest growing economies, boasting scalable research capacity. What does that mean? It's jargon, scalable research capacity. Put simply, it means you have the human talent to do the things that many other countries don't have and can't do. You have hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of the most educated people that have the skills that the tech economy needs, desperately needs. India also has really strong corporate management, and it has, not only beyond the tech talent pool, hundreds of millions of people and very attractive demographics. You have 100 million college graduates, you have 1.5 million postgraduate degree holders. There is everything here for Make in India to succeed. With these advantages, there is no reason India could not become a global R&D capital and ride this wave of innovation to developed country status well before the end of this century. Already, some of the most advanced research being done in the corporate world is being done in part in India. I would argue that it is actually being done more in India and the United States and more between India and the United States than in any other geography. As I look at the companies and I talk to them and I hear from their CEOs what they do and how they do it, these companies are increasingly blended. They're not purely Indian and they're not purely American. They are, the corporate DNA is blending to such an extent that they're becoming a fusion entity of US and Indian all around the world. And they are doing good things for people and for citizens all around the world. Now, on this, it's important to keep in mind that there are very serious challenges that face us. Number one, inflation and price rise globally is going to be a real challenge for everybody in this room and everybody on the planet. The other challenge is the uncertainty brought by war, and by a war that is causing serious hardship and food price rise and energy price rise that is going to impact the poorest people on earth more than anyone else. The other challenge that we're facing is a potential ongoing supply chain crunch. If you look at the China COVID-0 policies, it is having a real impact on the flow of manufactured goods, and that's going to be felt by everybody. There's also a bit of turbulence in the innovation sector. Global capital is getting very concerned about these trend lines, and what we're seeing is a lot of capital investment caution. And so I would argue to you that India has probably a sweet spot right now, but that sweet spot might end, and we don't know when that is, when there won't be as much money available to fuel the kinds of investments that can help India leap ahead. And this is something that is known not only by Indian policymakers, but it's also known by the officials of all of the key investment destinations. And right now, I would say the most prominent are, frankly, the United States, where the government is making very strong moves to try to attract inbound investment and also return investment. Also India, of course, with all of the policies that Minister Puri talked about, but also Mexico, Vietnam, Thailand, Indonesia, so many other countries around the world. So where is our comparative advantage? Simply put, we're democracies. We have a quad partnership that is built to last and is going to have a very positive impact, not only on the United States and India, but on the people of the entire Indo-Pacific and the entire world. We are resilient. We are resilient, free, and high-trust societies. And we can leverage that strength in any number of ways to power the entire world out of the pandemic, out of the current moment of uncertainty and risk, and create a better future for all of the people of humanity. In particular, I think that we ought to focus on a few challenges. Number one, we can have a dispositive impact in building a dependable, resilient, free world supply chain for all of the things that we must have, the critical materials of fueling and powering and supporting innovation societies, things like semiconductors and rare earths and much else besides, that we are going to need to power a clean energy revolution for a better future for humanity. I also think we ought to create frameworks for the development of emerging technologies. There ought to be tech convergence between America and India and other high-trust partners on things that are really important for the future: artificial intelligence, 5G, 6G, quantum computing, outer space, and so much else besides. These things are critical, and our innovation as Quad partners will power the entire world's development and approach to tech design and governance. And that leads me to my last thought, which I will issue again, is a call for all of us to use our sheer strength and resilience as free and innovative societies to empower all of our people and the world to power us to a greater era of freedom, prosperity, health, and happiness. The United States India Business Council, part of the United States Chamber of Commerce, believes passionately in the Founding Fathers' vision of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Thank you all very much.